Hey guys, Constance here from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I thought I would bring you in the kitchen with me today. I'm doing a little bit of an experiment. I am modifying one of my muffin recipes, the gingerbread muffins that I shared the other day or last week. Delicious, grain-free, gluten-free naturally, and just delicious, healthy muffins. And so I thought, those muffins have a really good texture. Sometimes when you're doing grain-free and alternative flours, your baked goods might get a really eggy sort of texture. These muffins had great texture. They were just, it was hard to eat just one of them. And so I thought, well, maybe I can take that recipe and modify it from being a gingerbread recipe to a chocolate muffin recipe. And so that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of play around with the ingredients a little bit. Hopefully this turns out. If it's a flop, then you'll find out anyways. I'm just going to let you know. So I don't know if these will turn out, but hopefully they do. Now, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to add not only cocoa instead of the seasonings, but I'm going to add a little bit of instant espresso. When you add instant espresso to anything chocolate, it enhances the flavor of the chocolate. You don't have to use a lot, just a little bit, and it just makes something that tastes chocolatey even more chocolatey in flavor. You don't really taste the coffee, the espresso, unless you use quite a bit of it. But if you're just using a little bit, it just makes it super chocolatey flavored. So I am starting off with a half a cup of tapioca flour and a half a cup of coconut flour, and I've got them in my sieve right here so that I can sift these. So I'm going to add in a teaspoon of baking soda here. And I'm skipping all of my seasonings, and I'm going to just jump right down to my pinch of sea salt. And then I'm going to add in some cocoa powder. And I don't want to add too much because this is a dry ingredient that I'm adding, and I'm going to be omitting the molasses that was originally in this. So I'm just going to go with 2 tablespoons to begin with of just organic cocoa powder. And then to enhance that chocolate flavor, like I mentioned, I'm going to use some instant espresso. And I think I'll put in a teaspoon of that. Let me put my baking soda away. And my cocoa powder. Alright, so a teaspoon of instant espresso. Okay, I'm just going to sift these into my bowl here. So that's my dry ingredients. I'm going to set that aside. And then I'm going to do my liquids. So first I'll need a half a cup or a stick of melted unsalted butter. So let me grab that. I should have done that already. Alright, so while my butter is over there melting on the stove, I'm going to go ahead and add in my half a cup of plain unsweetened applesauce. A quarter of a cup of coconut sugar. And now, since I am omitting one of my liquids, namely the molasses from the original recipe. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of water just to kind of compensate for that. I know it's not the same quantity, but again, I'm just experimenting with this. So if the muffins end up dry, then I know I'll need a little bit more liquid. I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and whisk these together. And I'm going to add in 4 eggs, one at a time. And I'm kind of keeping an eye on my butter over there. I have it melting very, very slowly on low heat because I want it melted, but I don't want it screaming hot because I don't want it to cook my eggs when I put them in here. Alright. Alright, and then my 1 stick, half a cup of melted butter. And I'm just going to drizzle this in while I'm whisking. Now I've got all of my liquids. Move this out of the way. I'm going to add my liquids here to my dry ingredients. Alright, I think that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and scoop this up. Alright, so I'm going to line my muffin pans here with some papers. And we'll start scooping in the batter. Alright, so it looks like I'm going to get about 11 standard sized muffins from this. So my oven is over there heating up to 350 degrees, and I will bake these for about 18 to 20 minutes or until they test done with a toothpick. Alright, so here is the nerve-wracking part about this. You know, it's really easy when you are cooking to modify a recipe and change things up. It's not a big deal. But when you modify things in your baking, you wonder if you've just completely messed it all up, if it's going to turn out, because baking is a little bit of a science experiment. And to be quite frank, when you are experimenting with alternative flours, it kind of cranks the stress level up just a little bit, because alternative flours are not inexpensive. They do cost quite a bit more than your regular baking flour, and so if you have a flop with those, it hurts a little bit more. Although hindsight 2020, I probably should have just done a half batch of these muffins, because that way if they're a flop, then I won't be out quite so many ingredients. But fingers are crossed that these turn out. They looked pretty good. I mean, the batter looked pretty good. Looked like it had a good consistency, so hopefully they do. Okay, so while my muffins were cooling down, I got dinner going in the Instant Pot, which you might be able to hear that hissing sound over there. But my muffins are cooled down, so let's see how my little experiment turned out. So I'm gonna break it open and look at the inside, because I know people always want to know what the inside of the muffins look like. So far so good. It's a nice, fluffy sort of muffin. So now the taste test. Not bad. I do think that the muffins could have handled some more of the baking cocoa. It's a little light on the chocolatey flavor, but otherwise, they're pretty good. So that is it for today. I will put a printable version of this recipe on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com. And if you are not already signed up, be sure to sign up for my free newsletter so that you can stay up to date on everything from Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining me here for my baking experiment in the kitchen, getting a little bit of a look behind the scenes of what it's like to be a food blogger and recipe developer. And I'll talk to you next time.